I was 32 years old when I finally decided to tie the knot with Natalie, my girlfriend of 5 years. I had spent my entire life working hard for every single thing I owned, unlike my younger brother Jackson. At 30, he still lived in our parents' basement, jumping between jobs and relationships while being praised as the golden child who could do no wrong. When he told me he wanted to hijack my wedding for his own proposal, I never expected it would lead to the biggest family showdown of my life. Before I tell you how my perfect day almost turned into my brother's show, let me know where you're watching from and hit that like button if family drama makes your blood boil too. Growing up in Lexington, a middle-class suburb just outside of Boston, my brother Jackson and I lived very different lives, despite being raised in the same house by the same parents. My father Frank worked as an accountant at a local firm, putting in long hours during tax season but always making decent money. My mother Diana taught third grade at the elementary school down the street, loved by her students and respected by other teachers for her dedication. From early on, there was a clear difference in how we were treated. I was the responsible one who had to earn everything. I got my first job at 15 bagging groceries at the local supermarket. I saved for my first car a beat-up Honda that barely ran but was mine. When college came around, I got partial scholarships but still worked 20 hours a week to cover expenses. My parents helped a little but always reminded me that building character meant paying my own way. Jackson, on the other hand, seemed to live by different rules. 2 years younger than me, he never held a job in high school. For his 16th birthday, our parents surprised him with a brand new Jeep Wrangler, complete with custom wheels and a premium sound system. When he crashed it 3 months later, they replaced it without much fuss. Boys will be boys, my dad would say with a chuckle that made my stomach turn. College was another clear example of the golden child treatment. While I attended the state university and worked part-time, Jackson got sent to a private college with everything paid for. He dropped out after 3 semesters, claiming the program wasn't stimulating his creativity. Our parents nodded in understanding. 6 months later, they paid for him to attend another school. He dropped out of that one too. He is just finding himself became my mother's favorite explanation for why Jackson could not seem to commit to anything. This pattern continued well into our 20s. While I built a career in software engineering, saving carefully and living within my means, Jackson bounced between failed ventures and half-baked schemes. There was the time he convinced our parents to invest $12,000 in his food truck idea, which never made it past a business plan scribbled on a napkin. Then came his revolutionary app that would change social media forever, but never got developed beyond a few sketches. Most recently, he had decided he wanted to become a craft brewer despite having no experience or knowledge about beer production. Despite my resentment, I tried to maintain peace in the family. I would bite my tongue at holiday gatherings when Jackson would show up empty-handed while I brought wine and dessert. I would listen politely when my mother called to tell me about Jackson's latest brilliant idea, followed inevitably by comments about how I should be more supportive of my brother. The contrast between us became even more apparent when I got my first promotion at 25. I called my parents excited to share the news, only to have the conversation cut short because Jackson had been fired again and needed a pep talk. When I bought my first condo at 27, after years of saving, my parents attended the housewarming, but spent most of the time telling guests about Jackson's plans to travel through Europe to find inspiration. Throughout all this, I managed to build a stable life for myself. I advanced in my career, made solid friendships with reliable people, and eventually met Natalie, who would change everything. I met her at a local coffee shop on a rainy Tuesday morning. We both reached for the last blueberry muffin at the counter, and instead of the awkward moment turning uncomfortable, we ended up sharing it at a small table by the window, talking until we both realized we were late for work. Natalie worked as a pediatric physical therapist, helping children with mobility issues. Her compassion, combined with her practical, no-nonsense approach to life, was exactly what I needed. Unlike my family, Natalie saw me for who I was. She appreciated my reliability and work ethic rather than finding it boring. When I talked about future plans, she listened with genuine interest, instead of cutting me off to talk about something more exciting. After 5 years together, we had built a life that made me proud. We purchased a small house in a nice neighborhood, adopted a rescue dog named Cooper, and both advanced in our careers. Natalie came from a stable, loving family. Her parents had been married for 35 years, and had a healthy, drama-free relationship with their 3 children. Family gatherings at her house were supportive and peaceful, so different from the walking on eggshells feeling I had grown up with. Her family welcomed me warmly, and for the first time I experienced what family support should feel like. When we decided to get married, we planned a modest but meaningful ceremony. We saved for a year to pay for everything ourselves, wanting to start our marriage without debt or obligations to anyone. The venue was a converted barn with string lights and rustic charm. The guest list included 120 people who genuinely cared about us. Every detail from the flowers to the music reflected our relationship and values. Meanwhile, Jackson's life continued along its chaotic path. After yet another failed business venture, selling custom-printed skateboards online, he had been unemployed for 8 months, living in our parents' basement, rent-free. He had recently started dating Amanda, a nice enough woman he had met at a bar. They had only been together for 4 months, but Jackson had already proclaimed her the one, just as he had with his previous 3 girlfriends. Despite approaching 30, Jackson still relied on our parents for everything from rent to car insurance to cell phone bills. They continued to make excuses for him, telling relatives he was an entrepreneur between projects rather than admitting he could not hold down a job. His latest scheme involved creating an energy drink specifically for gamers, something he knew nothing about but was convinced would make millions. He had already asked our parents to invest in his company. As the wedding date approached, Natalie and I found ourselves increasingly excited about our special day. We had chosen a beautiful venue on the outskirts of the city, a renovated farmhouse with sprawling grounds that would be perfect for our early summer ceremony. The guest list had been carefully curated to include only those who truly supported our relationship. We had picked a menu that reflected both our favorite foods, selected music that held special meaning, and written our own vows that we kept secret from each other. I had asked my college roommate and longtime friend David to be my best man, while Natalie had chosen her sister Megan as maid of honor. We had decided against having a large wedding party, preferring to keep things intimate and meaningful. Jackson, despite my misgivings, was invited as a guest, along with Amanda. I had hoped that perhaps the solemnity of the occasion might inspire some maturity in my brother. My parents seemed happy about the wedding, though they occasionally made comments that hinted at their disappointment in not being more involved in the planning. "It would have been nice to have some input," my mother said during one phone call. "After all, we are your parents." I gently reminded her that Natalie and I were paying for everything ourselves and wanted the day to reflect our vision, not anyone else's. Still, I hoped for a drama-free celebration. I even went so far as to have lunch with Jackson a month before the wedding, specifically to check in and hopefully head off any potential issues. During that lunch, he seemed distracted, constantly checking his phone and asking very few questions about the wedding plans. I should have recognized the warning signs right then. 2 weeks before the wedding, my parents invited Natalie and me over for dinner. Just a small family gathering before all the excitement, my mother said. I was touched by what I thought was a thoughtful gesture. How wrong I was. We arrived to find my parents, Jackson and Amanda, all dressed up more than usual for a family dinner. My mother had prepared all my favorite foods from childhood and set the table with the good china. Something felt off immediately, but I tried to ignore the nagging feeling. After dessert was served, Jackson clinked his glass with his fork, the sound piercing the casual conversation. "I have an announcement to make," he said, grinning widely. "Actually, a question to ask." My stomach dropped as he turned to Owen and Natalie. "I know you guys have been planning your wedding for months now, and it got me thinking about how much Amanda means to me." He reached across the table to take her hand, and I realized that I want to make the same commitment. I felt Natalie stiffen beside me as Jackson continued. "So I was thinking, what could be more romantic than proposing to Amanda at your wedding reception? All our family and friends will be there already. The venue will be beautiful, and it would save us having to plan a separate celebration for our engagement." The silence that followed was deafening. I stared at my brother in disbelief, unable to process that he was actually serious. Natalie's hand found mine under the table and squeezed hard. Before I could form a response, my father chimed in. "I think it is a wonderful idea. So efficient, and it would make the day special for both our boys." My mother nodded enthusiastically. "It would be such a beautiful family moment. Two brothers, two wonderful women, one special day. I finally found my voice. You want to propose to your girlfriend of 4 months at our wedding. The day Natalie and I have been planning and saving for over a year. Jackson rolled his eyes. Do not be so selfish, Owen. It is just a 5-minute moment during your whole day. Plus, it would be toward the end of the reception when things are winding down anyway. I do not think that is appropriate, Natalie said quietly but firmly. Our wedding day is about our commitment to each other. Amanda looked uncomfortable but stayed silent as my mother turned to Natalie. Sweetheart, I know you want your special day, but family is about sharing important moments. This would be so meaningful for all of us. I changed the subject, unwilling to have this conversation in the heat of the moment. But as we drove home that night, Natalie finally let her true feelings show. I cannot believe they would even suggest that, she said, tears of frustration in her eyes. Do they not understand how important this day is to us? How hard we have worked for it? The next morning, I woke up to 3 text messages from my parents. The first was from my mother. Please reconsider Jackson's proposal idea. It would mean so much to him. The second from my father, your brother is finally ready to settle down. We should support this milestone. The third again from my mother, Natalie will understand once she thinks about it. Family comes first. 3 days later, Jackson showed up at our house unannounced. We need to talk about the wedding, he said, pushing past me into the living room. Natalie was out with her sister, thankfully. There is nothing to talk about, I said firmly. You are not proposing at our wedding. Jackson's face hardened. This is so typical of you, Owen. Always have to be the center of attention, the perfect son with the perfect life. God forbid your screw-up brother gets a moment in the spotlight. This is not about attention, I countered. It is about respect for our special day. You have always been selfish, he spat. Everything always has to be about you. You got the good job, the nice house, the perfect girlfriend. Can I not have one moment at your precious wedding? The argument escalated quickly, with Jackson accusing me of always trying to outshine him and make him look bad in front of our parents. The irony was almost laughable. When I asked him to leave, he stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Within hours, my phone was buzzing with messages. My parents called, insisting I was being unreasonable and should reconsider. My aunt texted that I should be the bigger person and let my brother have his moment. Even my cousin weighed in, suggesting that sharing the spotlight would make the day more memorable. The pressure continued to build as the wedding day approached. Jackson was conspicuously absent from the rehearsal dinner, my parents arriving with tight smiles and minimal conversation. I tried to focus on Natalie and our excitement, but the tension was palpable. Then, 5 days before the wedding, I saw a post on Jackson's social media account. Got a special surprise planned for Saturday. Cannot wait to see the look on someone's face. The comment section was filled with friends asking for details, and near the top was Amanda's response. So excited. Cannot wait for our special moment. My blood ran cold. They were planning to go through with it regardless of our wishes. The final confirmation came later that day when my mother called, her voice artificially bright. By the way, I mentioned Jackson's proposal plan to Aunt Linda and Uncle Rob. They think it is just the sweetest thing. The whole family is looking forward to it. That was the moment I knew I had to take a stand. This was not just about a wedding day anymore. This was about years of enabling behavior, boundaries being crossed and respect being ignored. If I did not draw a line now, it would never end. 3 days before our wedding, I called an emergency family meeting at my parents' house. I told them it was to discuss final wedding arrangements, intentionally vague, but important sounding enough that everyone would attend. When I arrived with Natalie, my parents, Jackson and Amanda, were all sitting in the living room, an air of tension already filling the space. My mother greeted us with forced cheerfulness. Owen, I am so glad you called this meeting. I think once we all talk it through, you will see that Jackson's idea really will add to your special day. I took a deep breath and looked at Natalie, who nodded encouragingly. We had discussed what I needed to say, and she fully supported me. I had spent 2 hours the night before writing down my thoughts, making sure I would not forget anything in the heat of the moment. I did not come here to be convinced, I said, my voice calmer than I felt. I came to make something absolutely clear: there will be no proposal at our wedding. Not during the ceremony, not during the reception, not in the parking lot afterward. Our wedding day is about Natalie and me, and we will not share that spotlight with anyone else. My father's face immediately hardened. Now, Owen, I think you are being extremely selfish here. Your brother has found someone special and wants to celebrate that with the family. Why can you not share a small part of your day? I looked directly at him. Dad, for my entire life, I have shared everything with Jackson. I have watched him receive cars, college tuition, and constant support, while I worked for everything I have. I have stayed silent when family gatherings turned into celebrations of Jackson's latest idea, even when those ideas never materialized into anything. I have listened to explanations and excuses for his behavior for 30 years, but I will not share my wedding day. Jackson leapt to his feet. This is ridiculous. You have always been jealous of me, always trying to make me look bad. Jealous. I laughed, though there was no humor in it. Jackson, you live in Mom and Dad's basement. You have not held a job for more than 6 months at a time. Your current girlfriend of less than half a year is the fifth soulmate you have brought home. What exactly should I be jealous of? My mother gasped. Owen, that is no way to talk to your brother, I turned to her next. Mom, you and Dad have enabled Jackson his entire life. You have made excuses for his behavior, funded his failures, and cleaned up his messes. And now you expect me to let him hijack one of the most important days of my life because he has suddenly decided he wants to get engaged. It is not hijacking, my father interjected. It is sharing a special moment. If it is so special. Natalie spoke up, her voice gentle but firm. Then why does it need to happen at someone else's wedding? Why not create your own special moment? Amanda shifted uncomfortably on the couch, looking down at her. And hands. For the first time, I wondered if she was fully on board with Jackson's plan, or just going along with it. Here is what is going to happen. I continued addressing my entire family. Natalie and I have a simple boundary. Our wedding day is about our commitment to each other. If Jackson attempts to propose during any part of our wedding, he will be asked to leave immediately. If you support this plan to disrupt our day, you will be asked to leave as well. Jackson stood up, pointing an accusatory finger at me. You would kick your own brother out of your wedding, your own parents, to protect the day that Natalie and I have worked for, saved for, and planned for over a year. Absolutely. My parents exchanged alarmed glances. My mother's eyes filled with tears, the manipulation tactic I had seen countless times throughout my childhood. I cannot believe you would threaten to remove us from your wedding. After all we have done for you. What exactly have you done for this wedding? I asked quietly. We are paying for it ourselves. We planned it ourselves. We have asked for nothing from you, except respect for our wishes, which you seem incapable of giving. My father stood up, his face red with anger. If this is how you feel, maybe we should not come to the wedding at all. Then you will not have to worry about your brother's happiness ruining your perfect day. I had anticipated this response, but it still hurt more than I expected. That is your choice to make. But my boundary stands. No proposal at my wedding. Jackson's next words revealed his true motivations. This is so stupid. The venue is already paid for. Everyone will be dressed up. There will be a photographer and everything. Do you know how much money I am saving by doing it this way? But fine. Be a selfish jerk. You always have been. Amanda's head snapped up at this, her eyes widening as she looked at Jackson. I could see the realization dawning on her face that this romantic gesture was more about convenience and cost-saving than romance. So it is about saving money, I said. Not about romance or family or sharing special moments. You want to piggyback on my wedding because you do not want to plan or pay for your own celebration. Jackson sputtered, trying to backtrack, but the damage was done. Amanda stood up abruptly. I need some air, she said, and walked out the front door. I turned to my parents. I love you both, but I need you to understand that this is my and Natalie's day. We have one simple boundary, and we expect it to be respected. If you cannot do that, then you are right. Maybe you should not come. With that, Natalie and I left the weight of years of family dysfunction hanging in the air behind us. As we drove home, I felt an unexpected sense of lightness despite the confrontation. For the first time in my life, I had stood up for myself against my family's manipulation. The days before the wedding were filled with messages from extended family members. Some called to express support, having witnessed the golden child dynamics for years. Others called to tell me I was being harsh and should keep the peace for the family's sake. My parents maintained a stony silence, while Jackson sent a series of increasingly angry text messages accusing me of ruining his relationship with Amanda. Through it all, Natalie stood by me, her quiet strength a reminder of why I was marrying her. Her parents, seeing my family's behavior, stepped up to help with last-minute details and provided the support my own parents should have given. My friends rallied around us, filling the roles that family might normally take. Despite the drama, or perhaps because of the clarity it had brought, I felt more certain than ever about our future together. Our wedding day dawned bright and clear, the kind of perfect early summer day that photographers dream about. I stood in a small room at the venue adjusting my tie and trying not to think about whether my family would show up. David, my best man, kept me distracted with jokes and stories from our college days, his steady presence a reminder of what true support looks like. 15 minutes before the ceremony was set to begin, my parents walked in. Their faces were stiff, their greetings formal, but they were there. "Jackson is here too," my mother said. "He and Amanda are sitting in the back row." The unspoken message was clear: they had come, but they were not happy about it. "Thank you for coming," I said, simply choosing not to engage with the tension. This day was about Natalie and me, not about family drama. The ceremony itself was everything we had hoped for. When Natalie walked down the aisle, radiant in her simple white dress, every other concern faded away. We spoke our carefully written vows, promising to support each other, respect each other, and build a life based on mutual trust and love. As we exchanged rings, I caught a glimpse of my mother wiping away, tears, her expression softer than it had been in days. During the reception, my parents kept their distance, speaking politely when approached, but not going out of their way to celebrate with us. Jackson and Amanda sat at their assigned table, Jackson sulking noticeably, while Amanda seemed to be engaged in deep conversation with one of Natalie's cousins. I had expected to feel sad about my family's behavior, but instead I felt a strange sense of peace. For the first time, I was not responsible for managing their emotions or expectations. I was simply living my life on my own terms with the woman I loved by my side. As the evening progressed, the dance floor filled, the cake was cut, and toasts were made by people who genuinely cared about our happiness. David's best man speech made everyone laugh and tear up in equal measure, while Megan's maid of honor toast spoke beautifully about the kind of relationship Natalie and I had built. It was during a quiet moment, as I was getting a drink from the bar, that Amanda approached me. "Can we talk for a minute?" she asked, glancing over her shoulder to where Jackson was engaged in what looked like an argument with one of my uncles. We stepped outside onto the venue's porch, the sounds of the reception muffled behind us. "I wanted to apologize," Amanda said, surprising me. "I had no idea about Jackson's plan until he announced it at that dinner, and I definitely did not know the extent of it until recently." "What do you mean?" I asked. She sighed, looking uncomfortable. "2 days ago, Jackson told me his full plan. He was going to interrupt your first dance by having the DJ stop the music. He wanted to take over the microphone, make a big speech about finding love, and then propose in front of everyone." She shook her head. "He even booked a photographer friend to come just for that moment without telling your wedding photographer." I felt a wave of vindication wash over me. My instinct to stand firm had been absolutely right. "Thank you for telling me this," I said quietly. Amanda nodded. "I have been seeing some concerning patterns in the past few days. The way your parents treat him compared to you, the way he expects things to just work out without effort." She twisted her hands together nervously. "It has given me a lot to think about regarding our relationship." As she walked back inside, I realized that my stand had done more than protect my wedding day. It had potentially helped Amanda see the truth about the family dynamic she was considering joining. Standing up for myself and Natalie had created ripples I never anticipated. The week after the wedding, as Natalie and I enjoyed a peaceful honeymoon in Maine, news filtered through from my cousin that Jackson's latest business scheme had fallen apart spectacularly. He had spent the money his friends had invested in his energy drink company before securing any manufacturing deals. Now, they were demanding their money back, and Jackson had turned to our parents to bail him out again. This time, however, something had changed. My father called me directly, something he rarely did. "Your brother used our credit card without permission to order inventory," he said, his voice tired. "We are looking at almost $20,000 in charges." For the first time, my parents were facing real consequences for their years of enabling behavior. They were too overextended to cover this latest disaster, and the situation was forcing them to finally hold Jackson accountable. It was a painful but necessary development. Over the following months, other family members began reaching out to me. My aunt admitted she had always seen the favoritism, but had never felt it was her place to speak up. My cousin told me he respected how I had handled the wedding situation. Even my grandmother, who had always doted on Jackson, called to say she was proud of me for becoming my own man. The healing process was slow, and not without setbacks. I began seeing a therapist to work through the years of being the unfavored child, learning to recognize patterns of behavior that I had normalized growing up. Natalie supported me throughout her steady presence, a reminder of what healthy love looks like. I established clearer boundaries with my parents and Jackson. When Jackson called asking for money 3 months after the wedding, I politely but firmly declined. When my parents tried to make me feel guilty for not helping your brother in his time of need, I calmly reminded them that at 30, Jackson needed to stand on his own feet. Slowly, a shift began to occur. My mother started calling just to check in without mentioning Jackson in every conversation. My father invited me to a baseball game, just the two of us, something that had not happened since I was a teenager. These were small steps, but meaningful ones. Amanda ultimately broke up with Jackson, a decision that seemed inevitable after the wedding incident. Jackson blamed me, of course, but I had learned not to take responsibility for his choices or their consequences. As Natalie and I settled into married life, building our own traditions and creating a home based on mutual respect and support, I reflected often on how standing up for ourselves had changed everything. It had been painful in the moment, but that firm boundary had created the possibility for healthier relationships moving forward. I had spent 30 years trying to earn my family's approval, working harder, achieving more, always hoping they would see my worth. What I finally realized is that my worth was never dependent on their recognition. By choosing to value myself and my marriage enough to protect it, I had inadvertently begun the process of healing old wounds. Sometimes standing up for yourself means risking relationships that matter to you. It means facing the possibility that people will walk away rather than respect your boundaries. But I learned that those risks are worth taking because the alternative is a lifetime of resentment and pain. My brother is still finding his way, still struggling with the consequences of years of enablement. My parents are slowly learning a new way to relate to both of their sons. And I am learning that family can be redefined and rebuilt on healthier foundations even after decades of dysfunction. Have you ever had to stand up to family pressure to protect something important to you? Let me know in the comments how you handled it. If you found value in my story, please like, share, and subscribe to hear more life experiences. Thank you for listening, and remember that sometimes the hardest choices lead to the most profound healing.